Bryan M. Kuderna is a certified financial planner and founder of Kuderna Financial Team, named as New Jersey's top 10 financial professionals of 2021 by NJ Biz. He also hosts a popular finance and business podcast, the Kuderna Podcast. He's a regular contributor to CNBC, Newsmax, Yahoo Finance, AARP, and other media. His first book, Millennial Millionaire 2016, launched Kuderna as a national speaker at colleges, hospitals, corporations, and financial institutions, and paved the way for his new book, What Should I Do with My Money? Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos. And that's McGraw-Hill 2023. Bryan has a Master of Science in Financial Services from the American College and a Bachelor of Science in Finance and Economics from the College of New Jersey. He enjoys staying active, having completed an international Iron and Marathon, practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and spending time with his wife and 3 children. Please welcome Bryan M. Kuderna. Welcome everybody to Money 911, where we really talk about critical issues. And today, well, you heard my intro for Bryan, and I think this is on everybody's mind, whether they're saying it or not. The title of his book, What Should I Do with My Money? Right? In the economic insights to build wealth amid the chaos. Bryan, I'm really, really happy to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and it's so appropriate.
Yes, it is.
What's going on, and it just keeps getting more and more confused.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Really, and it's so uncertain, because one minute it's this and next it's so much volatility. And I think I
Yep,
probably want to start with, what do you think the banking crisis will mean for,
sure.
right?
Yep, yeah. So, and I think that's a good launching point. So, the bank turmoil that we've experienced over the past few months, I think it's a wake-up call, really. It's what happened. I mean, we had the inflation that kind of reared its head, late 2021, and then through all of last year that we're all aware of. And then that was essentially the cause of then the Fed being so aggressive with their rate hikes. And then the next cause to that is where you start to see almost the symptoms of the treatment. Okay. So you had the treatment being the Fed hiking the rates really quick to attack the disease, if you will, of inflation. And now the first symptom we're seeing, or the first victim of sorts, is the banking sector. And, I think that what happened, it's unique in that some of these regional banks like Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic had very concentrated depositor bases. So I think that's a good thing when we look from like a macro standpoint of the whole economy. It's like, oh my gosh, these big banks went under, but their customer base was very niche, very into venture capital in the tech space. So those bank runs, it was kind of like a small party that just collapsed, and they panicked. And, the reason that I brought up the rate hikes is when the Fed raised rates so quickly, these banks, their balance sheets holding all of these bonds and what are considered safe instruments, when rates go up, it's like a seesaw. Then the value of all those holdings, all those bonds go down. And when it was essentially like a fire sale where they had to liquidate a lot of them, they sold them at the loss. And that's really what sparked, the bank run. So it's, it's kind of a crazy thing to be living through. I don't think that there's going to be this mass contagion through the banking sector. I think, the banking sector as a whole is in pretty good shape, much, much better than 2008. But it is a wake-up call. And I think it's good for the Fed to see, like, okay, we've been attacking inflation, and we know that there's going to be, kind of an ancillary effect and collateral damage. And now we're seeing it. So I think that will give them pause, which they've hinted at, that now we're going to kind of pump the brakes. And so, it's unfortunate, but it's almost like you knew there were going to be some casualties in this war on inflation. But hopefully now we can kind of take pause and maybe have that soft landing that we all hoped for.
Right. And what do you think it means for the mortgage rates? Right.
Yeah, yeah. So for mortgage rates, I think that's really going to be governed by kind of what the Fed's doing. And so we've
Okay.
seen now just over the past year, they've hiked rates, 500 basis points in such a short span. That's unprecedented.
Yeah.
And so that's where we got for so long, we were used to mortgages, in the threes or maybe the fours. And it was like, hey, this is great. And now, you go up to like the sevens, and it's like a lot of people, especially first time home buyers, don't even know what this is about.
Right.
Um, but I don't think we're going to stay there too long.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that, like we said with the banks, the Fed does have to be cautious here. So if you, said, hey, what are you betting on? I think that they're going to, pause their rate hikes probably for the remainder of this year. And so then hopefully we can see interest rates begin to go back down maybe in 2024. That might be my guess.
Oh, okay. Well, that's promising. So,
Yeah.
as a, a certified financial planner, you've
Mhm.
talked to a lot of people, right? And
Yeah.
and what do you see? I have my take on it because I'm on the safe money side, but what do you see is the common mistakes that people kind of keep falling into and they make and they don't really realize it?
Yeah. So if it was maybe one thing, Chris, if I had to kind of put my finger on, I would say it's people who get too emotional with their money. And in good times and in bad. So you see it where, the markets are going up. We had the longest bull market in history. And so all of a sudden, people who are maybe more conservative by nature and more suited for fixed income annuities or things like that, they might have started to feel, in recent years, like, man, am I missing out? Maybe I know people are making a killing in tech or in an index fund. Maybe that's what I should do. And then, they kind of latch onto that herd mentality. And then bam, 2022 happens and they get hurt. And then they might want to go back to being conservative. And this kind of flip-flopping is a very dangerous game. So I think that's the big thing I tell clients is like, it's okay to be conservative, it's okay to be aggressive, but you have to understand your overall financial plan and your own mentality. And then you kind of have to commit because you realize there's going to be ups and downs to both, sides of the coin. And then I think that that's the key thing is we want to be able to take some emotion out of it, not just kind of fall for like the latest headline or the latest fad,
Yeah.
and really be able to stick to a process.
That's really a good point. I think that applies to a lot of things, right?
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
does.
Stay balanced, stay calm. And
Mhm.
what do you recommend clients do to safeguard their finances and protect from all the economic downturn and things that are going on? What's your
Sure.
recommendation?
Yep. Yeah. So I have pretty much a four-step process that I use for all my clients, and surprisingly enough, it's the same for people who are in their 20s as it is for people who are in their 70s. And so those four steps are protection first. Okay. So that's looking at, what are some of the threats to your plan? We're talking about life insurance, disability insurance, or later in life, what becomes long-term care insurance, things like that, estate planning, making sure that we have kind of a good game plan with our money. The second's going to be liquidity, so whether that's, buying a new house, getting the kids through college, or using money in retirement when we downsize, all these different phases, are we staying liquid so that we don't have to hit a panic button or tap into our assets, not on our terms, but, just because we need them, even if it's in a down market. So it's protection, liquidity, debt management. And then after that, we enter growth and how we actually build money. And so I think there needs to be an order. That's my process. And I think when we have that plan, no matter what stage of the game we're at, then we can, again, take some of that emotion out and say, okay, whether times are good or bad, I'll be able to kind of roll with the punches because of these four steps.
That's really good. And so, do you recommend, that they have, they used to say 6 to 8 months rainy day money, but now after the pandemic, it's almost like maybe it's a year or two rainy day
Yep.
money. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a great point. So by and large, I tell clients, 6 months expenses is what I like to see in cash. And that's, savings checking, money markets and the like, just very available, guaranteed money in that respect. So 6 months expenses, that's kind of my rule of thumb, if you will.
Mhm.
But then, there's everybody's different. Every case is unique. And I usually tell people any money that we think we might need within the next 2 to 3 years, that may also go into the rainy day fund. So it might be like 6 months expenses plus, we want to get a new car or we might need a down payment for something or fixing the deck. That money should go on top of our 6 months expenses.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. So, and I really like the way that you hit all ages, and I know it would be the same for 30s and 70s. I feel the same.
Mhm.
I agree with that. I feel the same way about that. And in your book Millennial Millionaire, where you focused on younger, they're
Yep.
facing a lot of challenges, right, in the economy. And what
They
kind of
are.
advice do you give them? Because a lot of people say they're just going to be serfs and renting and not really. That's what I hear anyway, right? Not have any
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I am a millennial myself. So
You really?
I understand it. I'm kind of
Yeah.
going through it with the whole generation. And,
Right.
I think the big things, that you hear about in the media are, the student loan epidemic, that they're taking, our generation's taking longer to enter the workforce. But it kind of also in line with that. I mean, as a generation, we're taking longer to settle down, to get married, to have children. So all of these big life events, which also come with their own kind of price tag, we're kind of deferring them in sync with the delay we're having financially in maturing.
Mm.
So I think, whether that's good or bad, that's just kind of the way that we're dealing with it. And whether one causes the other, is difficult to tell, but that's kind of what our generation's doing as a whole. Now, in Millennial Millionaire, that was kind of like a crash course on finance. And, really what I try and speak through that book is for people to either A, go to college with purpose, or B, maybe not necessarily go to college, but go into the trades or something. College right now is really going through kind of a bit of a evolution. And I
Right.
think there's a reevaluation on the value of college, which is a good thing. I
Right.
think there needs to be a gut check of is it for everybody or what's the value of that diploma, because the cost is just getting so exorbitant. So my point is to kind of understand that. And then if you go to college, get your value out of it, get in a practical, applicable degree, and then as fast as you can get into the workforce and find yourself. And that's by kind of baptism by fire, go out there, get the job, enter your career. That's the key to everything, is going to be working hard and making money. And then from there, you can follow those 4 steps that I described. So that was Millennial Millionaire, was a lot of that content. And then what should I do with my money? My new book kind of elaborates on all of that from an economic standpoint so that people understand the system that we live within. And when they say, why should I do X, Y, or Z and dig a little deeper, now they have those answers and that conviction behind it.
I totally agree with you. I think everything that's all being reevaluated, and you a lot of people are finding that they get a better job with a trade and not being in a debt. So many people have such huge debts from
Yeah.
the student loan.
And then
It's yeah,
I wrote Millennial Millionaire, I guess that was in 2016. And that was, the elephant in the room was the student loan debt,
right.
delayed onset adulthood. And now you factor in where we're at today with, like you mentioned, mortgage rates being so high, home values going through the roof. And so it's true. You ask, somebody in their 20s, and it's like, how would you buy a house when you're swamped in debt and the house costs us a fortune, for a 1 or 2 bedroom? But things are relative. The wage growth has gone up. It's not uncommon to see an undergrad in finance or accounting in their first couple of years making 6 figures. When I got out of college in 2009, that was unheard of.
Right.
So everything is relative. There are some tough spots, but there's also a lot of opportunity, and that's what I always want people to see, is find those silver linings too.
That's good. Yeah, I always look for the silver lining. And
Yeah.
and you're blessed. You get to be, contribute on CNBC and Newsmax, and you're out there, and you get a lot of questions. And what I wanted to get from you, because there's a thread that goes through all those questions. Like if you had one thing, and you're, in front of millions of people or something, what is it that you would impart? What would you share?
Yep. So that's a great question,
Thank
and
you.
I'll try and boil it down as much as I can. And I think it really kicks off my book, which is I define wealth in like its original meaning of the word, which is a state of well-being. And so a lot of people come to me, they say, "Oh, you're the money guy, you're the financial advisor." Yes, I am to an extent, but money is just by itself, it doesn't mean anything. It's what you get out of money, what kind of peace of mind it gives you, what comfort it gives you, what it allows you to do with your life. And so I think with a lot of, especially young professionals, I try to start there and say, let's figure out what it is you want to accomplish, what's going to make you proud and happy through your career, through your family, et cetera. And then understand money is just kind of one spoke of the wheel, but it deserves attention. We're only as strong as our weakest link. So whether you like the finance conversation or not, get informed enough that you can have a good plan. You can understand how you're working with a good professional like a CFP. And then I think that can give someone the conviction to kind of adhere to that plan, which is critical so that they don't get emotional and start kind of jumping all over the place. So I know that's kind of a roundabout answer, but it all comes back to that education and finding what you love to do and then piecing it together so that I feel like once you have a plan and a process, it frees you up to go pursue the other things you want to do. And that's my greatest joy is when a client comes in my office, they're just overwhelmed. They drop folders of info everywhere. Bryan, I don't understand any of it. And then we piece it all together. And then they're like, oh, all right, we got this. Now I can just go back playing with my kids or whatever. And they know that there's a plan. And that's
Right.
the key thing.
Right. That we're on the same page there too. And that's how, when I wrote a book, number one best-selling book, Ready for Pre-Retirement, 3 Secrets for Safe Money and a Fabulous Future, but it was around
Yep.
having that peace of mind. And
Sure.
I think people are reevaluating what success is. Isn't just that I have multi-millions or the real success. Now I'm a boomer, right? I'm in the end of the
Mhm.
boomers, so a younger boomer,
Yeah.
but when you're like 20, it's hard to imagine what you do when you're 40 and when you're 50. What's it like 80? Each age has its own things that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And right. And and I'm trying to wrap this around, the idea of success. And my idea changed as I aged. And then,
Sure.
midlife after having a successful business, I saw, oh, it was really about the give back and the connection with people that was
Yeah.
that money. And that was the
Yeah.
thing that I was taking with me at the end of the day. I'm like, oh, that was so nice to meet Bryan and talk. And,
Yeah.
it was a good feeling. It wasn't, weird or anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Being real. And
Yeah.
that's my treasure. And that's and nobody can take it from me. And no crash is going to affect it, right? So there's like,
Yeah.
and then you're walking around with that peace. So
Exactly.
it's a holistic kind of thing. And I see that in you, in your personal values and your growth. And you have
Mhm.
a healthy lifestyle work balance, don't you? The way you,
Exactly. Yep. And that's what I love about my career too, where I feel so blessed is I'm an entrepreneur at the end of the
right.
day. So yes, I'm a CFP and I enjoy doing that. I enjoy helping people, educating people. But then I have the platforms of, my podcast and my books where I feel like there's just so much greater reach and just kind of expands a conversation that I feel like needs to be had. So yeah, it's like you get to do all these little different things, but then that's one aspect of me. The other is family and health and practicing jujitsu, doing Ironmans and marathons and all these different things. And that's what I try and tell my clients too. Is like it's good. You don't have to have a balance. You don't need to kind of do like what I do per se, but having some sort of balance, of health and wealth, I think is key. And I think when I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of very successful people, and it's wild how you see kind of like at the highest rungs of our social ladder, these people that say like, oh, I'm too busy to do this. I'm too busy to go for a walk. I'm too busy to do yoga or whatever. But then when you meet these ultra high level people, it's like, how come they do it all? And it's like, if it's important enough, you'll find the time. And that's what I try and tell people.
That's very cool because you've been nominated or recognized as one of New Jersey's top 10 professionals. So, that's significant. And then
Thank you.
right, and then you've balanced all of that. So how do you daily stay motivated, right, to
Yeah.
bring your best forth to help others?
Yep. Yeah. So, a couple ways that I would approach that is one, I'm very much about routine. I'm very goal oriented. So, I like to wake up at a certain time. I like to, start my day reading. I need to get my exercise in that day, whether it be in the morning or right after work. I try and have kind of a set schedule for the work day. So, I like having as much kind of on autopilot in a sense as I can, so that I know I'm getting done what makes me feel good that I got that done. But then the other thing I always try and tell people too, especially when they're just kind of like in a rut or trying to find out what to do, I always say chase excitement. If you have something in the day, like if I said, what was the best part of your day? And it was like, oh, when I was writing this letter, or when I was in that meeting with two of my friends, whatever it was, find that and then see how you can incorporate more and more of that into your everyday activity. And so those are things that I try and do. So whether it be a call just like this,
Yeah.
or sitting down to write a new article about a topic that I think is really important, I always try and get that in, and then that re-energizes me, so that then my other work, financial planning with a client, or even just answering emails, that all gets elevated too, because I had kind of that balance that just, lifted me and gave me some more energy.
Yeah, that's so true. I do the same thing. That's it right there. And I just want to leave everybody with you know, a little cherry on the top from What Should I Do with My Money, your book, and
Yeah.
and just pull out something, useful for everybody that they can walk away with here.
Sure. So perhaps just kind of a tip. I know we covered some different bases here. And again, my book, what it does is it covers these 9 domains of economics. And it's wide ranging. We're talking population, war, religion, big tech, entitlements. So all these different areas that at first don't seem totally connected, but they are very, very interconnected. And the way that I look at it is through an acronym called MICE, which stands for money, ideology, compromise, and ego. And these are 4 motives that we all have to some extent that guide our decision making. So that would be, you'll find that all throughout the book, how I utilize that exercise. But just recognize that MICE, money, ideology, compromise, and ego. And even think for yourself, like, how is that playing into my everyday behavior, and also recognize that in others. And I think it gives you kind of a really cool vantage point where it's almost like you can step outside of the debate or the conversation, watch it from this new lens, and then go back and see kind of how you're judging yourself and others through those 4 motives.
That makes you want to read the book, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could go on and on. We'll just have to have you back because we could just keep
Sure.
going here. Very good. Tell everybody where and how to get your book too.
Yep. So again, the book is What Should I Do with My Money? Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos. It's available wherever books are sold, in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. And you can also go to bryankuderna.com. Again, it's Bryan with a Y. So if you go there, you'll find all my latest and greatest from my podcast, my newsletter, insights and cool previews from the book. And feel free to check it out.
All right, Bryan. Well, a wealth of information, and I encourage everybody to go check the book out. I got it. I'm reading it, and really appreciate having you here.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithkrismiller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.